And then the classroom door flew open. A female student was looking in. She must have been in a hurry because she was a little out of breath. She brushed her hair along her eyes and was about to come inside. What's up? Oh, Empress, perfect timing. The whole class started to talk to her. Hold on. She was about to say something when her foot caught on one of the cables crossing the room. And she suddenly tripped. Watch out! I moved quickly. She staggered towards. I grabbed her to keep her from falling. Be careful. Her hair flew up and tickled my nose. It smelled good. Her body was very soft. Extremely soft, in fact. It felt kind of squeezable. What was I touching? Was any part of a person's body this soft? No. At least nothing on a man's body was. Which meant... What was this?
Miyashiro, お前とんでもない勇者だな。こんな大勢の前で堂々と女帝のおっぱいをもみもみするなんて。
Boobs? Oh no, this was an accident. If that ever actually happened, she would kill me for sure. Just thinking about it made my blood run cold. She almost tripped, but managed to keep her balance. Oh, so everything that's happening that's positive and negative is a thought. It doesn't actually happen, but you see what the person thinks. She smiled a bit and took a big, deep breath. All the students around her, boys and girls alike, began to move. They surrounded her as if they were welcoming a long-lost family member.
ちょっと誰？こんなところにケーブル置きっぱなしにしたの。危ないな。のの、ごめんね。
Empress, you okay?
ええ、気にしないで。
She answered them with a smile. I felt like our eyes met. I looked away without thinking. No Kuro Shu, the first student council president of Hikiho Academy. Hey, so for our cafe, we got the kitchen and then the other part. What do you call it where the customer sits? She smiled as little as she spoke. You mean the hall? Yeah, the hall. Did Mr. Wacky adjust the number of curtains we've got to partition the two? Adjust? Huh? You hadn't heard?
ということは絶対やってないでしょうね。わかった。私から言っておく。
You sure? The teacher seems to have their eye on you. Actually, they seem kind of scared of you.
生徒会長なんて生徒側から学校側に無理難題を押し付けるためにいるものでしょ。大丈夫。なけなしの権力を振りかざすから。あと増田君、女帝はやめて。
Thanks, Empress.
あなたね。
Most of the boys in the class called Kero Su Empress as a joke. She's gotten the name after becoming a hero to her fellow students through deeds like putting an end to principal's endless homeroom speeches. Not to mention bringing more types of bread to the school store.
の着ぐるみありがとね。ぴったりだった。田中。それ私が試着した時最後までファスナー上がらなかった。 地雷呼び込み禁止にするからね。ああ、ごめん、嘘嘘、ピチピチだから。これは割とマジで。いや、てかどうせ胸で引っかかったんでしょ。冗談、期待してるから笑い取ってよ。
She sure was popular. She even knew the name of students in other classes. The top of the school caste system. That was the first phrase that came to mind. And then...
タクル、話があるの。ちょっと来てくれる
Korosu walked all the way over to me. And Ito. Her expression was so kind. It seemed like she had been putting on some kind of act. I could see that all people who'd been surrounding her were staring at me. What does Empress want with the camera kids? Are they friends?
知らないの？ナノは。
Huh? Seriously? I ignored my classmates' whispers and focused on... Her smile seemed faked, as if it had been plastered onto her face. Whenever she smiled like that, it meant she wasn't in a good mood. Sorry, I can't now. I just figured out something about the case and I'm putting it together. The Students' Council really is busy with the culture festival right now, right? So once it's calmed down... Her cheeks twitched a little. Crap. Korosu didn't like it when I called her by her last name.
ちょっと来てくれる？部室。
No, I don't want to. I could sense a dark aura foaming around her, hardly befitting a so-called empress.
来てくれる？
She was so close to me.
行こうか部室。なあ宮代。
Ito couldn't handle the terror. It didn't look like I could talk my way out of this one. Seeing no other choice, I nodded and stood up. Kurosu. Kurisu, you got a second?
グラウンドに出す屋台のコンロの数でしょ。やっぱり一つの屋台につき一つで統一する。
Huh? But that's
悪いけ
okay.
ど例外はなし。校長に掛け合ったけどダメだったから。人数が多くて不満があるところは私が後で直接説明に行く。
Roger, I mean, wait, why aren't you where you're supposed to be? Kurosu, I told you that if you're busy, we can do this later.
もう終わったから。ごめんね川原くん、急ぎなの。
Her tone was gentle, but broke no argument as she hurried to the club room. This guy thinks of me negatively. You again? What did you do this time? I didn't know his first name, but he was in the same classroom as he was the vice president of the student council. No, you don't need to tell me. You were pretending to be a reporter again. Or was it a detective? I knew why he was giving me a hard time. He didn't like the fact that Kurosu was spending time with me. It's, what? It's not any of your business, I think. It's not any of my business. When you take up Kurosu's time, you cause trouble for me and the rest of the students' council. Shut up. What did you just tell me? He must have heard that because he came storming up to me. He tried to grab me by the collar, but I knocked his hand away. Instead, I grabbed his head and put it under my arm. Huh? Hey, let me go. I grabbed his belt, lifted him off the ground.
おお、ブレーンバスターか。そのまま垂直落下で落とせ宮代。
やめなさい、危ないでしょ。
I raised Korosu above my head and then stood there, unmoving for a moment. For when I was deciding whether to drop him or put him down. Hey, put me down. He furled his legs towards the ceiling, tried to escape. The man didn't know when to give up. I could do a lot worse than just drop you, you know. I shifted around in my arms and quickly moved into a position for a pile driver. Then I dropped into the ground butt first and slammed his head into the ground. I heard an awful crunching sound. His skull must have fractured, but before I dropped him, I let go a little so it didn't hit him as hard as it could have. If I hadn't, he would be dead right now.
タクル、やりすぎよ。
His face was
警
expressionless.
察に通報するわ。
Don't blame me. Blame?
そんな理由で人生を棒に振ったの。あなたがそんなに愚かだったなんて知らなかった。
A wash in Bezos called the police. Kawahara had passed out, a little bubbles of foam around his mouth. The teachers had heard the noise and started to gather around me. I guess I'm going to drop out of school. Yeah, that's what would happen. I could beat the stuffing out of right now if I wanted, but that would just get me in trouble. I didn't want to ruin my life over something like that, so I decided just not to say anything to him. So I heard you skipped most of elementary school, middle school, and is that true? I could feel my legs tense up. I stopped. My face got hot, and without thinking, I glared. She quickly shook her head.
川原くん、急いでいるから。
But he kept on staring at me. I felt like he was grinning a little. It pissed me off. But there was nothing I could say. I did the best I could to ignore him and turn away. I ignored what sounded like a little laugh.
It
wasn't me, okay? The second the three of us were alone in the club, her expression changed. The smile plastered on the student council's face disappeared. This was really who she was. What wasn't?
川原くんが言ってたこと。
But Kawahara was saying, I didn't tell him, okay? It didn't bother me.
嘘。
You're lying. Really, it didn't. Everything about me was different than I used to be.
まあまあ。で、何副部長。話があんでしょ。
タクル、あなたちゃんとご飯食べてるの？少し痩せたんじゃない？
Huh? Where was this coming from?
これからどんどん寒くなってくるでしょ？住んでるところの防寒対策とかちゃんとしてるんでしょうね。
Ugh, crap, she was in a nag mode.
進路調査、結局就職で提出したんですって？進学で提出しなさいって言ったのに、勉強できないわけじゃないんだから。確かに今からだと厳しいけど、受験なら私が面倒見るってこれも前に言ったでしょ？
Did you go asking the teachers? And wait, is that what you wanted to talk about?
どうなの？ちゃんと食べてるの？
I'm eating just fine. Everything's just fine. I waved my hand to bring the conversation to a close. I didn't want this to end the way it used to. And with a 6-hour lecture about every aspect of my life as wrong, followed by a hard labor as my punishment. Karusu looked like she had a lot more to say, but a moment later.
あなた、先週の金曜日、学校サボったでしょ。
Huh? So that was what this was all about? Yeah, I did. Is that a
あ
problem?
るに決まってるでしょ。どこで何してたの？ストレージにアップした画像、あれを撮りに行ってたんじゃないの？
Damn it, I figured that would be it. She was right, the pictures I took him from the karaoke box were from last Friday when I skipped school. I started staking out the place early this morning and waited for the manager of the condo building to open the curtains. It was a lot of work, but I was able to get photos of the scene that nobody else has, except the police.
こういう事件ばかり追いかけるのをやめなさいって前から言ってるでしょ。
Kuresu was the vice president of the newspaper club and had been opposed to Otto's and my journal ethos for a long time. We spent most of the time investigating crimes. Stuff like the attacks on the homeless people that had been flooding the city ever since the earthquake, urban legends about a company involved in rebuilding and who put tons of security cameras all around the city, and a serial arson case where the culprit had never been caught, and now these strange deaths. For her part, Koreso said that the student paper shouldn't be investigating crimes. She wrote normal, sincere articles. The video about the Shibuya recovery efforts that had won a prize had been mostly her work.
タクル、今回あなたおかしい。学校をサボってまで事件を追うなんて今までなかったでしょ。
That was true. But the reason why was obvious, right? I was lucky enough to have this huge mystery right in front of me. This is worth skipping school for. Because it's the first big thing that happened in Shibuya since we started the newspaper club. This is a huge scoop.
おいしい？
Scoop? That face was bad news. It was scary. Toa was right next to me, so I grabbed him and held him tight.
おい、縦にすんなっ
Hey,
て。
don't use me as a shield. Wait, am I a shield?
てか、
Why
副部
is
長何その
her
顔。
face so scary?
おいしいですって？人が死んでるっていうのに？
No, I'm sorry. Stay away from me. I really can't handle this.
おすんなって。ちょっと待って、マジで縦なの？
Oh crap, oh crap. That face was seriously bad news. The Empress was scary enough that she could send a demon running in terror. I've never met a demon either. That's just how scary she was.
もう一度言ってくれる？よりによってあなたが人が死んでおいしいですって？
Oh shit. I need to find some way to stop her. And then I felt the wind rush by my ears. Huh? And at the worst possible time, the wind blew through the room. Kuresu didn't even have time to hold down her skirt. Okay, here comes my serve. I've got it. My eyes were locked with Kuresu as I heard these sounds from the windows open. I hadn't even realized it was open until then. This was a tennis court on top of the special use building. That was probably the tennis team out there. I needed to say something. Was I supposed to tell her I hadn't seen anything?
副部長？白なんですね。イメージ通りというか。
Idiot, are you trying to get yourself killed?
私の下着の色が何色か今関係あんのか
I flinched at the sudden noise. I'm sorry. And then I realized. I was sure that was the sound of Kuresu kicking the wall, or maybe the sound of her murdering Otto, but I was wrong. It was coming from deeper inside the room.
あ
That girl.
たく和樹来てたの？
Kazuki, are you here?
和樹
She got on her
そう
headphones.
かヘッドホン
Kurisu sighed and pulled off the headphones Kazuki always wore.
円数2でイラついたからって壁を殴るのはやめなさい。何度も言ってるでしょ。
Fancy Star Online 2 or ESO2. She probably meant ES Online 2.
壁へこんでるじゃないもう。
Look, you're making a dent. Hana Kazuki, the only first year student in the newspaper club. And forget her, this was my chance. She's rubbing the red marks on her hand. Anyways, I'm going to keep following this case. I found a clue. Glared at me for a moment, but
おおマジか。よしすぐ準備する。聞かせてくれ。ぜひ聞かせてくれ。
Otto hurried over to the club's computer, desperate for any chance to escape his doom. I stared back at Kurisu for a moment, and then boot up the computer and print out the images in the storage folder.
了解だ。
Otto's voice was louder than it needed to be as he turned on the computer.
もう殴らないこといい？
Maybe she took pity on poor Otto because she didn't say anything else, but she still crossed her arms and glared at us across their wall. As she was across while she was leaning against the wall, she was at least going to hear me out, it looked like. Or maybe this was just her way of making sure I didn't escape. You owe me lunch later. Why? I didn't want to.
しやがって気まずすぎんだろ。こんなもん10-0の巻き込まれ事故じゃねえか。
I am sorry, but you were lucky. She didn't get violent.
てって副部長？
I nodded. Kurisu was the girl that everyone looked up to, but she was actually very short-tempered. It would take me more than 5 fingers, but less than 10 to count the number of times she slapped me hard. And when I told him that,
マジか。
are you serious?
そんな
I mean,
なんていうか
really? Are there really teenage girls that do that stuff? That's one step short of Hisco or Esuke.
ねえ
Let's go.
あなた方陰口は聞こえないように言えって言われないの？
Okay, so Esko, a girl with a sadistic personality who enjoys inflicting pain on others. Ooh, I knew one of these back in my day. Oh, the young days. Short for hysteric. Original, a term used for psychology, but used to refer to a short-tempered person who can't control their emotions. Empire Sweeper Online 2. The sequel to what is once Japan's largest online. Yeah, it's Fancy Star Online 2. Like its predecessor, it was well received. Yep. It's beautiful. I love the reference. Oh, Pocom. Pocket computers. Tweeter. A type of Tweeter? It said Twitter. Tweeter. A type of social network and mini blogging application that allows for twits for twits up to 140 characters and wow. Okay, cool. The almost hiss didn't even bother looking at us as she spoke.
いや、そのセリフを言ったことはあるんだけどね。それもついさっき教室で。
そう。
And then she fell silent. She was scary as hell. It felt like I moved. If I moved, she'd kill me.
おごりだ。決定だ。大盛りにデザートだ。異論は見た。
That was 50% your fault. Actually, it was 100% Otto's fault for not keeping his mouth shut.
なあ、
Hey,
見たか？見たよな。
I didn't. That was a lie. I'd seen it. They were white. Or nothing at all. I glanced at Korosu out of the corner of my eye. I guess that really was just what you expect. Still, I've gotten a glimpse. It was entirely possible it must have been a mistake. If I burned the image into my mind now, maybe the next time something like this happened, I'd be able to react more quickly. So I prayed for more good luck. If I ever did happen again, I swore I would react as a right-sider should. A right-sider wouldn't panic over something as insignificant as seeing a girl's underwear. In a situation like that, it was critical that you stay calm. When she heard Otto's turn on the printer, Karezu trotted over as she usually did. Yes. That online addict had the best computer skills of anyone in the club. Whenever she was around, it was her job to run searches and organize the information on the PC, but...
手伝わなくていい。この件については部の活動と認めてないから。
Kazuki gave us a questioning look. Oh, yeah, that's right. Kazuki just said, like she always did, and walked away.
ほら、和樹、まだ手赤いわ。もっとさすってあげるから。
Obediently walked towards. Korozu took her hand and rubbed them gently, like a mother would.
痛かったでしょ。どうしてそんな無茶をするの？どう？まだ痛い？和樹、どうしたの？もう甘えん坊さんなんだから。じゃあわからない
Stupidest thing
わ。
I've ever seen in my entire life. Oh my gosh, this is so dumb.
寂しかったんでしょ？違う。照れちゃって可愛いの。ごめんね、寂しい思いさせて。私もあなたと一緒にいられて。手の痛みはもう引いた？和樹の指、細くてとっても
おい。
Hey, why are you
何ぼんやりして
spacing
るん
out?
だ？宮代？
Sorry, I was being the biggest weeb and was not focusing on what's going on in reality, and it was horrible, and I never want to do that again. It's just a stupid idea out of my mind. Kuresu was nice to everyone, even girls like Kazuki. Of course, in reality, Kuresu and Kazuki had never done anything like that. They never would. Put her headphones on and went back to the corner of the room. I never did know how to talk to her. Actually, it felt like it's been forever since I even spoke to her. If you could call this a conversation, that is. She'd been part of the newspaper club for 6 months, and all I knew about her was that she liked games, knew a lot about computers, and hated talking. In the end, Otto's printed out the pictures, and I took them and went in front of the bulletin board before Kurasu changed her mind. If Kurasu was going to listen, it was probably better to start at the beginning. She didn't seem interested in the case, but if I ignored her, it was even madder. Even using Otto as a shield shouldn't have been enough to save me. There are 2 cases we're looking at right now. The first occurred at the 7th of this month during a Nakakanya livestream. It was a public suicide called the Don't Look at Me case. It happened here in Janyan. Just like you probably guessed, a man killed himself without warning during a... Strictly speaking, we don't know for sure that it's suicide, but it looked like one. The deaf man is called Yoma Otan, age 21. He was a live streamer who got quite a lot of views with some kind of fortune-telling program called Till. I can see the future. So here's how it went down first. Gave the audience some time to ask questions. He the camera. And after that, there was some kind of someone knocking at the door. It was faint, but the mic picked up on it. There were some voices too, but you can't make them out. When he came back in front of the camera, half of his arm was missing. Right arm was missing. It was just chopped up in tiny bits and sitting on the top of his plate he was carrying. Then he started eating his own fingers like it wasn't feeling any pain at all. Her expression changed a little. She probably hadn't known that. The suicide had been big news, even on TV, so she'd probably seen it there, but the details had been so horrific that the news hadn't broadcast them. Those details can be found anywhere on the internet. It was only a matter of time before someone started putting it all together. The video itself had been even started to get around. Then after a moment, he started to scream in pain. And then he died.
出血性ショック死な。警察の発表でもそうなってたし、混沌するまでの時間を考えても間違いない。
Otto added, Otto knew more about this stuff than I did. He was a fan of bizarre murders, and he read 10 times as many killer diaries and non-fiction crime books as I had. The most likely theory is that he experienced some kind of mental disorder before the suicide, but the police are supposedly looking for whoever visited the room first. In Japan, if you saw someone trying to kill themselves and didn't intervene, it wasn't a crime unless the police could prove you wanted them to die. But aiding in a suicide or encouraging someone to commit suicide was illegal. That meant that the police were probably looking for whoever met Otan just before his death. Kurasu was silent, but she was looking at the board and seemed to be listening. It seems safe on the next case. Second, the case that occurred on the 19th. It gets its name, leaky noise, from the condition the body was found in. It happened here, in Shinsi. The girl's name was Momone Takiyanagi, age 20. She was a singer in Nikanya. She's been getting really famous online, singing anime theme songs. She was going to sing at the Restoration Festival too. Every sunny day, she'd always go to the same place at the same time and put on a performance in her fancy band costume. That day, she started her concert pretty late. But something was wrong. Her voice was small and it didn't sound like she usually did. And then in the middle of the concert, she died. Blood loss here too. She'd been stabbed in the stomach before she started the concert. Oh wow, I didn't even know that happened. What? What? I thought she just disappeared. What is going on? What's strange was the condition the body was found in. Play the video.
Oh.
Sure thing. Otos tapped a few keys on the computer keyboard. A moment later... What? I didn't even notice. She's dead. She's really dead. Call an ambulance. Whoa. What? I don't remember that happening last time. Koresu looked confused, and when she heard the sound, evidently she wasn't able to make it out. Oh no, not that one. The one that Shibuya's news upped the enhanced audio.
そっちだよな。
She's dead. Call an ambulance. Her expression changed. She must have been able to hear it this time. Thanks. Take it easy. According to the regulars, she would begin every performance.
なんでも歌ってみたの歌い手の中では彼女のライブが一番だって最近評判だったらしいぞ。
Kaorasu seemed to be ignoring me and Otto. She was staring at the computer screen that was the source of the sound. The screams are from the audience members who discovered the bodies. It was from a miniature speaker embedded in her stomach. Whoa, there was a speaker embedded in her stomach and she... What? Karasu seemed confused, so Ota interjected.
その日のライブは最初から録音されたものだったんだよ。
Evidence found later indicated that she slit open her own stomach with a utility knife she got at a convenience store and then stuck a Bluetooth speaker in. Oh, gross. That's freaking disgusting. Oh my goodness. My chest. She closed the wound up with duct tape. Not that it actually did much good. Then she used her clothes and the outfit to hide the wound and started her performance. At first she played the guitar along with the sound of her recorded voice, but after a while she stopped playing. This was when she leaned forward and didn't get back up, so this was probably already dead then. But while the audience thought it was strange, they kept listening. Either the blood from her wounds broke, the portable music speaker in her pocket, or maybe it was supposed to be this way from the start. But until that same line you just heard played over and over, no one realized she was dead. Korasu's face was a mixture of confusion and discomfort. Of course it was. She'd never heard of something like this. I couldn't hold back my excitement. Huh? Amazing, right? Instead of agreeing, Korasu frowned. She probably didn't realize it, but she was wrapped her arms around herself. What was wrong? Was this a little too creepy?
ここまでは単にこれまでの事件の整理だろ。発見ってのは?
Oh yeah, he was right. I used the computer to print out a series of pictures. Obviously, we don't know what the motive behind those two killings are. The one suspect that we got is whoever visited Otto's room, and we didn't know who they were, but what they wanted or what they were talking about. But I think there's more to this to come. It's only a guess though, based off of something the victims have in common. Huh? Seriously? Otto leaped out of his chair in shock. I couldn't blame him.
共通点に関しては散々話し合ったろ。分かったのは渋谷に住んでることと宮堂のユーザーだったこと。あとはまあ2人ともある程度の知名度があって自殺した状況が異常だってことくらいか。でもそんなもんじゃそれ以上のことは何も見えてこなかっただろう。
So you didn't see the other thing they had in common? I pointed towards the bulletin board as I spoke. Otto looked really annoyed.
偉そう しよってからに。そもそもこっちの気を引くようにプリントアウトしてるやつはなんだ。
One of the best parts of finding something like this was seeing an angry look on his face. It was only yesterday that I found it myself, though.
じらさなくていいから。何を見つけたの？
Kotoso beckoned me for me to go on. No matter what she said, after hearing all this, she probably wanted to know what came next. It was done printing. Kotoso Kuzuki suddenly stood in front of me. She offered me the printed image without a word. Thanks. Yeah. Then she offered me something else. A lollipop? Are you giving me this? Thanks. She seemed to be communicating in her own unique way. She walked over to the built-in board and tapped the data printing out on the two cases with her fingers.
どうした？
She did it again. I saw the point she was pointing at and nodded. That's right, the dates, the 7th and the 19th. That's what they have in common. Strange deaths on the September 7th and September 19th ring a bell. I kept looking at Otto. Usually he would be the one to pick up on things. A second later, he froze. He must have figured it out. Yep, with your love of weird murders, you know what I'm talking about. I pinned the image I just printed out onto the bulletin board map. September 7th, the group dive. September 19th, the pregnant man. September 29th, crucified. October 10th, the vampirer. October 23rd, brain dead. October 28th, yummy hand. November 4th, the DQN puzzle.
ニュージェネレーションの狂気。
The new generation madness. Yep. 6 years ago in 2009, a series of strange deaths had occurred just before the earthquake that had struck Shibuya on November 6th. They became famous for the words looking left at the scene of every crime. Those eyes, whose eyes? They called the killings of the new generation madness. The murders took place in Shibuya, but the whole country took an interest in them. At the same time, I was in 6th grade, and just like a lot of people, I followed every new development of the internet. The dates matched up exactly to the dates of the murders 6 years ago. They may be set up to look like suicides, but every bit of them was as weird as the old
偶然
killings.
でしょ。
She seemed to be trying to force the words out of her throat. Kurosu was acting a little strange. Her arms clutched her torso even tighter.
副部長？
Maybe it was all because of the creepy pictures she'd seen. Kurosu was clearly shaking. She tried her best to stop it as she spoke.
何でも関連づけて大きくしたがるのはやめなさい。
We'll know for sure the third new generation madness took place on September 29th, in other words, today. If something weird happens in Shibuya again, we'll know for sure. It's a coincidence 3 times. It's not a coincidence anymore. A phone rang. It was mine. Yes? Hello?
いや、事故？とにかくタコの言う通りのことが起きたかもしれないんだよ。
I could feel my heart starting to race as she spoke. It was a love hotel around Dagenzaki. Ooh, that place is known for love hotels. Hotels where you relax in a room, you probably have sex, and then you do the deed, and you come back out. You typically only spend 30 minutes to 2 hours. You don't actually typically stay the night. I don't know if you can actually stay the night, but it might be an area where you stay the night. They don't really have these anymore in the United States because it's considered prostitution, but people would typically use these back in the day. Also, if they were living with like people and they didn't want to particularly um, do the deed in the same household or in the same place where they rented. They also did them for like honeymoons and things like that, but most of the time they're seen as like sleazy underground stuff. A few days ago, there had been some kind of suspicious fire here, and I'd come to do some reporting. The place was supposedly a love hotel spot, but even at night, where business should have been booming, it's particularly exciting. During the day, when all the lights were turned off, if you didn't look at the signs, it wouldn't look very different from your average neighborhood. One of the buildings was a 4-story love hotel with a terrible name, Fairy Dance. It faced a narrow street and there was no parking, so the police car was parked at the rear. Suraika was standing in front of a general store some distance away. She was supposed to be spending the day taking photos of the area around the 2 crime scenes. What happened?
わかんない。さっきゲンさんと107の近くですれ違った時にここで何かが起きたって教えてくれた。
I just don't get that guy. Where does he find out about this stuff? It's helpful, so I guess it doesn't matter too much. Jim was a homeless man I knew who had sold me all the books in my secret stash. He was a drunk who claimed to be of noble blood, but the stories he told me about his past didn't sound very noble at all. The guy was a weirdo, but since he kept all his time wandering around Shibuya, he knew a surprising amount of info about it.
大事なのは間違いないっぽいよ。さっき中に入ってった警察の人が応援呼んでたみたいだし。
He was asking for backup? I see. I decided to start by taking a video of the outside of the hotel with my smartphone.
お前こういう時だけ足早いな。
I left the 2 of them in the club room, and they had just now caught up with me. They must have ran here. Otto especially was breathing very heavily. What Kurosu came to, Kazuki had decided not to come. Of course not. I had never seen her outside except for when we were going to from school.
で、事件か？
I told Otto. He seemed really
な
disappointed.
んだそりゃ。単に血は喧嘩かな。
Would you call reinforcements just for that? And today's the 29th, you know.
だから気にしすぎだって言ってるでしょ。
Kurosu seemed upset. She glanced at the love hotel around her in disgust.
早く学校に戻りましょう。学生がいていい場所じゃない。監視カメラに映っているのが問題になったらどうするの？
She probably didn't want to get involved. Ever since the rebuilding, there had been more cameras around Shibuya than ever, even around the love hotels, and our school uniforms probably stood out. Kurosu motioned for us to go home. And then... I saw something in the viewfinder. On the 3rd floor of the love hotel, the windows in the room facing the alley were open. The window must have been all the way up, because the curtains were fluttering out. Hey, you normally don't open the windows in a place like this, do you? I asked Otto and I looked up at them.
まあそうなんじゃねえの？使ったことなんかねえからわかんねえけど。
Otto followed my gaze and saw it for himself. It felt suspicious. I even been to a I've never been to a hotel either, so I didn't know, but normally you kept the windows shut, right? You wouldn't want people seeing or hearing what you were doing. And then suddenly I heard a sound from somewhere. It was a calming song, simple melody. I took a closer listen. Was it a music box? It definitely was. It was coming from the room with the open windows. It sounded like it was inviting us in. What's going on? I looked around. The building across the open window was another Love Hotel, but it had no windows on that side. I couldn't look into the building like I'd done with the karaoke box last week. I certainly couldn't climb my way up
ちょっ
there.
と何考えてるの？
I must have had a pensive look on my face because I turned and asked if we can get inside without them finding us. I looked over at the parking meter. There was still only one car. Okay. There should be a rear entrance somewhere, so let's do it before the police backup gets here.
おお。
I'll take this side.
ちょっとタクル、こっち見なさい。
I began to go around the building and not waiting for Otto's answer, but Kurosu grabbed my
ダ
arm.
メ。こんなの部活の範疇じゃないでしょ。私の言うことが聞けないの？
Crap. She was just a millimeter short, making that face again.
しかもここ、いかがわしいホテルでしょう。それに、もし妙なことに巻き込まれたらどうするの？
I knew all that, but I didn't want to give up. This might be my chance to get a real scoop.
停学にでもなったらどうするつもり？姉として弟を危険な目に遭わせるわけにはいかないの。
Sister, we're actually not actual family, are we? Instantly, Kurosu grabbed me by the collar with incredible force and brought her face so close to me that our foreheads touched. I could tell her cheeks were flushed. That was a small wordless groan from deep within her throat. Her arms were shaking a little as she held me. What was she trying to say? No, I knew what she was trying to say, but Kurosu didn't say it. Kurosu wasn't some sort of awful person who'd bring up the distant past to try win an argument. Anyways, this was all over now. It wasn't either of our faults.
やめー！
Suddenly, Sarika ran over and tackled Kurosu. The momentum slammed both of them into the ground.
ちょっとセリ、喧嘩はダメだ
No
よ。
fighting,
じゃん
non-taku.
5人でみんな仲良くが新聞部のモットーでしょ？
No, that was never our motto.
しんちゃんも止めなきゃダメじゃん。
いや。つうか、どこ行ってたんだ？
ああ、そうだ。喧嘩してる場合じゃないんだよ、タク。
She suddenly hopped up like a cheap toy.
裏のドア開いてる。
What?
喉乾いて自販機なくてホテルの中ならあるだろうと思って裏のドア見つけて開けて中入って自販機やってさすが妖精のダンスじゃんやるじゃんって思って買って一気飲みしてたらあれって。
んだよそれ。
You always get ahead of yourself.
タク、どうするの？
That's the plan. I could tell that Kurosu was glaring at me, but she didn't say anything. She couldn't say anything. Let's go together. If we pretend to be a couple, we might be able to fool them if it comes to that. As soon as one of those words flew out of my mouth, Sirika begged me to follow her. I did. I didn't say it, but in my heart I apologized. Of course she couldn't hear me, so she didn't say anything.
階段向こう なんだけどな。
We went inside the hotel from the rear entrance and hid behind the corner. This was my first time inside a love hotel and was a lot less grotty than I expected. The name was false advertising. There were no fairies and no one was dancing. Maybe the quiet atmosphere was a selling point, but just send someone back here. What? No one acts, Sinjo. Quiet and ruined by the sound of the police officer screaming into his phone. And I think we'll just continue this next time. If you want to see what happens next, hit that like button, follow, and subscribe. Comment on down below. Alright, Roboprinny out.